Now it's time to have our discussion, and I appreciate not just really finding out if this mic works, and it works fine. We keep the door open. There may be one or two stragglers. We'll put them on the largest donation list. I want to thank you for, on behalf of the select board, who are stragglers themselves, which is consistent with my experience with my colleagues, and town management. I want to thank you for your attendance, and frankly, I'm overwhelmed by the response and your willingness to participate in what I think is an important dialogue. Back this up a little bit. This is an iconic picture of downtown Bennington. Four corners with the old County National clock, which some of us will remember. But I'll tell you, it personifies the reason for this session. The town is at an economic crossroads, and time is not in our favor unless we make strong effort to get the economic clock up and running smoothly. In April, my colleagues and myself decided to dedicate ourselves to a new job description that's probably outside the charter, but we cannot, as a select board or this community, do business as usual. And we made that our mantra, which I'm sure my colleagues would agree. We decided that business as usual would not work unless we as a organization, both privately and publicly, formed a partnership. And this is part of that initial effort. The early part of our effort was to commission a survey of the Bennington economic environment in our community. Frankly, the results were not surprising. The employers got back to us in good number, and a couple of things stood out. And as you see these slides, we're not going to spend a lot of time on slides because this is going to be your discussion, but the perception in the community is that for and fair business climate exists within our town. We took that to heart, recognizing that it was basically a confirmation of what most of us in this room already are aware of. I want to also say that I've observed over the time that I've been on the select board and before that maybe what Bennington has lacked is a community vision, a common vision. And that lack is what it wants and what it can do. And unfortunately, we have not had a coalition or an effort to bring that all together under one roof. You are the first group to take this responsibility on, and I'm going to pass that to you. The challenge for you today is to start to put the building blocks in place to create that common vision. I'm going to hope that you will share with the select board your candid thoughts and ideas on what are the most pressing needs for this community. What do you want for the community? How should we address them as a community? And what do you perceive as the obstacles to implementing that common vision? An underlying question goes through this, is the flavor of it, is that how do you see yourself as a participant with the town in the partnership once the vision is defined? Without spending a lot of additional time on what I would like to see out of this, I want to introduce Susan Scorbati, who is the director of the Center for the Advancement of Public Action and the program here, who's going to facilitate the discussion. It's interesting that the Capitol facility is where we're having this discussion today. I can't think of a more appropriate place for that to happen. The board, management, and I appreciate Bennington Colleges making this facility available. I can't think of a better group or better facility for this discussion to go forward with. We have a number of folks in the audience, and I can't go and introduce all of our esteemed members, board or our legislative contingent. Also, the audience is welcomed. Because of the time available, however, there's not going to be a Q&A. You're not going to get an opportunity to ask a lot of questions or any questions specifically. But at the end of each row, I think Mike Harrington has put sheets of cards or sheets with pens. And if you have a question that you would like addressed or dealt with as a result of the forum today, you can get it to Mike and he'll share it with the select board. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the forum over to Susan for that initiation. Thank you, Susan.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. So we're doing a work session today, and I actually made some of these for you. If you want to take one and pass them around. This is the agenda. And we're going to begin, as Tom mentioned, to think about the vision. But rather than just spending time on the vision, because so many people, it was fantastic that all of you came today. And we only have 2 hours, and we will end at 6:30. And I do want to just say briefly that if you, there's refreshments outside and water, if anyone needs that. There are bathrooms right around the corner. And so I just wanted to make sure that you knew that. So what we're going to do is join the vision with what you would like to see happen in Bennington, a concrete idea. And so there may be time. And what I'd like you to do is to introduce yourself before you speak. The idea was that everybody around the table would get a chance, briefly, right? So we need to be brief. But that you, and I'll give you an example of what this could look like. So what we're going to do is, we'll put the vision here. Okay, the ideas here. And the obstacles over here. It'll probably take us an hour to spend on this, to get around the table. And then we'll spend the second hour or 45 minutes on next steps. So I thought in terms of, what's an example of how you might combine a vision with an idea? And this is, there's no, you know, the whole point of a work session, I want to say, is that this may be the first time you're thinking about this today. That's fine. It's not about having something absolutely figured out today. These are about ideas, generating ideas. Some people around the table may have been thinking about this for a long time. Whichever you feel you want to bring forward. If somebody says something that you had already said, that's exactly what I've been thinking about, feel free to say that as well. Okay, so it's really a free time to just speak about what it is that, any ideas that you have. And then we'll have time for a dialogue between everybody. So my example was, let's say I was thinking that a vision I had for Bennington was that I wanted to support local businesses. And for me, I'm particularly interested in local food. So I think that somehow what would support local food and local businesses? Well, one thing the students at Bennington are interested in doing right now is making a local food catalog that would identify all those local food producers in the area and advertise that to the community, to tourists, etc. Another thing that might be a concrete idea related to that would be a co-op. Is it possible? I think there have been talk and people who've worked on that before, so that may come back. There are different ways to think about it. So that's just an example of one way of combining something that I maybe would like to see Bennington as a vision, but some idea that supports that. Okay, does that make sense to everyone in terms of taking a stab at this? Okay, I thought we'd start with Phil, and then we'll just go right around the room. So if you'd introduce yourself first.
Hi, my name is Phil Pappas. I'm the owner of the Paradise Inn. My main concern with Bennington is downtown. I'm pretty concerned with what I've been seeing going on downtown. I mean, I think the bypass has really affected our town in a real negative way. And I think we need to market our town a lot more than what we are doing right now. When you look at what we're spending to market our town and our budget, it really seems to be a pretty low number. I think with the amount of decrease that we're seeing in traffic, you would have thought that we would have picked that up a little bit so that we could get a little bit more people coming into town. But I'm just not seeing where we're doing that. As I venture around to other towns, I'm seeing our town is lacking in things like what Susan said with food. I mean, food co-op downtown I think would be huge. I mean, it's going to create foot traffic. A lot of people are going to go there. I've always had this vision in my head, as soon as Greenberg's went down, that if we could take that, I know the Greenbergs don't want to sell everything piecemeal. They would rather sell the whole block. But if we could take where the old hardware place was, and we could turn that into a food co-op with a farmer's market there, like we have a farmer's market now, we could put a food co-op there, and then turn the old lumber barns into an art venue where we could have things like the Garlic Festival and different cultural events there. A lot, not just seasonally, a lot. I think we could have something pretty special in that particular piece of town. And then if you kind of cross Washington Avenue, you've got that big empty space that Greenberg's owned also. You could put something there that I think would be a real draw to our town, where you're creating something that's getting foot traffic, you're creating art, because you're getting people down there to different cultural events. You've got the Old Castle right next door there, so it it creates this one little center spot where you've got some culture in there. You've got, it's just a thought that I've had for a long time. I think it would create a little bit of energy downtown. I think we should have as many events as we possibly can downtown. Almost like what we're seeing out on, what do they call it, north?
Four Corners North?
Four Corners North. Like what they're trying to do out there, we've got to put a lot of attention into our downtown.
Thank you.
So I'm JJ Williams. I own Williams Financial Management. It's a financial planning and investment management firm. We have 5 offices across 4 states, but our main office is here in Bennington. We've been in business for about 10 years, and I've lived here my entire life, and I know most of the people in this room. I grew up here, went to high school here, went to Southern Vermont College, went and did my graduate work at UMass Amherst, came back, and I'm here now. My idea, or my focus really is on jobs. And I've had conversations with many people in this room about that. And I'm a big believer that jobs fix a lot of problems. And I know that that's a really easy solution or an easy thing to say, but I think the question really becomes, how do we get those jobs and how do we bring them here? And I think there's a couple of ways to do that, and I've had some great conversations with some of the individuals in this room about that. I think one of those ways is to try to bring in larger companies. And the other way is to kind of grow them organically out of entrepreneurial activity within the area. I think attracting larger firms in this area, quite frankly, is not necessarily should be our focus. For a couple of reasons. I think 1, we don't have the resources to do that, and 2, we would end up competing on a stage that many other places are competing, including a lot of the other places that I own offices and branches. everybody is having that conversation about going out, going down to Texas, going to Virginia, going wherever they need to try to lure companies back here. And, you know, being positive about it, I think it would be hard for us to compete with that right now. So the other avenue or the other direction to kind of go into is small business or entrepreneurial development. And when I talk about entrepreneurial development, I'm not talking specifically about high-tech, product-driven entrepreneurship. And so I've done a lot of work with, I have an academic background where I used to be the department chair of entrepreneurship at Hudson Valley Community College, and I launched a SUNY-based entrepreneurship program there, where we brought in a lot of not just high-tech, we would partner with a lot of high-tech companies out of RPI to kind of take what their inventions and try to launch them into the marketplace. But quite frankly, I'm really talking about what we call in the industry the forgotten 70%, which is those individuals like probably a lot of us in the room right here, where we didn't take a lot of venture capital money, we didn't take a lot of angel investor money, but we just took our idea, we worked really, really hard, and about 5 or 10 years later, or 15 years later, we had a business that sustained us, our family, and possibly some employees. And that's kind of my story, right? We have 12 employees right now that we work with, and I'm really proud that we can support those areas. So I think there's a lot of help for communities just like ours who are interested in taking those small businesses, many times service-based businesses, and kind of helping launch them into the
Can I ask
area.
a quick question? What do you think is the biggest obstacle right now to doing that?
I think the biggest obstacle, not just in Bennington, but many other places around the state of New York and other places I've been into, is that there's not a coordination of resources and there's not a coordination of information. So the number one problem that most students that come and see me, either in the classroom or outside the classroom, is that they don't know where to take those first 3 steps. Right? They may know to go and see, Mike, or they may know to go and see, they might know to go see the bank, but they don't know what the next step is after that to get in a direction.
Thank you.
Jim Brown with the Bank of Bennington. And actually, I'm going to kind of sound like JJ here. I think in entrepreneurial culture is probably the way to go to get the job. And I think downtown is the best place to have them, because you can concentrate it with some energy. And it's also where there's some vacant resources. In terms of the obstacles, what you're talking about, one of the things that I think could help that is making it almost turnkey and really encourage somebody between possibly cheap space, easy space, maybe even capital, but even beyond that, resources of people with experience. So you're not picking the winner or loser in what type of industry you want. It could be all comers, but making it easy for them to at least try.
Good. Thank you.
My name is Jonas Spivak. My wife and I own the Hawkins House, which is a second-generation family business here in the northern part of downtown Bennington, which we would like to call Four Corners North. I also own a graphic arts and website development company, and I've had a lot of experience working in groups such as this, brainstorming ideas and trying to advance our community forward. And I'm delighted that this is happening. And I agree with Mr. Jacobs that this is a wonderfully ironic place to have this discussion. I'm going to start with the obstacles, because I think as a community we've taken a lot of hits in the last couple of years. With the Great Recession, and then with some bad press that we got, where we were on the front edge of the opioid epidemic, but I think now the world and the country has recognized that it was not a Bennington problem, but rather a problem that is pretty much all over. But I would drill down to that and say that the effect it's had on our community has been large. And one thing that I heard Michael McDonough say in his run for the select board, which I thought was wonderful, he said that Bennington does not have an image problem. Bennington has a self-image problem. And what he meant by that is people that come to our town are really impressed and love our town and have great experiences here. But a lot of the people that actually live here and work here, we struggle with that because we see the negative side, and we're often our own worst enemy. So it's the cup half full, it's the cup half empty situation. I dare say that we need to challenge ourselves to decide that the cup is truly half full. In terms of our vision, I think that we are the authentic Vermont. We're the real Vermont. We're entrepreneurial. We have a downtown that we care about and is relevant in our community. We're not things that we're not. We don't have a great nightlife. We're never going to have a great nightlife. If you're looking for that, go somewhere else. But let's stop beating ourselves about the things that we're not and be excited about the things that we are. We're the authentic Vermont. We've got wonderful natural resources. We're a great place to raise a family. I, like many of the people in this room, I came back to this community because I love it so much, and I'm proud to be here. One opportunity or an idea that I would like to share, and first of all, I agree with everything that's been said so far, but I'm going to broaden our horizons a little bit and say that here in Bennington, in the South Shire, we are 1/2 of Bennington County. We, of course, have a little bit of a sibling rivalry with the North Shire, but the North Shire and the South Shire, together we are the Shires of Vermont, and we need to think about how we can market ourselves as a region to help make us a destination. So we try to help mitigate some of the problems we have over the bypass that's getting around us. We need to be the destination. How do we be a destination? It's been difficult to imagine that when I thought of myself just as Bennington. I've wrestled with this many years. But when I thought about us as the Shires, with everything that the North Shire and the South Shire have combined, we have something truly powerful. And I would also like to comment that we've come full circle in terms of how we feel and the world sees us. This year we were ranked 15th as the most culturally vibrant community in the entire country of areas under 1 million people. This is huge. But we didn't do it by ourselves. We did it as the Shires, as the North and South Shire combined. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Amen. Here. I'm Robert Walters, North Bennington Museum, and I will reaffirm everything that's been said, but especially a lot of what Jonah was saying resonates with me. Looking at the positive, and I'm a recent convert to Bennington, as it were. I'm only here 3.5 years, but I tend to emphasize the positive. By the way, I wasn't paid to say this in this venue, but let's also point out that Bennington College was number 4 on the list of most entrepreneurial colleges in the nation. And another one is in Western Vermont. Middlebury was number 2, I think. I mean, that's amazing. So a number of thoughts, kind of free form, in the order I jotted things down. And some of you have heard me say this before, that it's often heard, we need a big investment in Bennington. I think I might come around to that notion in a minute, but you've heard me saying that we need to think carefully and subtly about tipping points. I don't know if you all know Malcolm Gladwell's book, Tipping Points, and sometimes it's little things that can tip a town or tip whatever it is you're talking about. I think we need to look at towns that have tipped and try to figure out what made them tip before we put in $20 million into something. A little bit of anecdotal evidence. Rockland, Maine, which clearly tipped from an industrial fishing town to this amazing arts community. It seems that there was a big investment by MBNA and credit cards there, but somebody on the ground there says, no, it was the artists who were there first. The artists made a tip. Is that true? It should be testable. Somebody who's a business owner downtown told me about the town his grandmother lives in on Long Island, and they're convinced that what made that town tip was because the mayor said, we need housing downtown, that's the first thing. And the housing downtown made the downtown tip. So these are small things that might not take huge investments. I've been saying this for a while, however, in the last month I've been saying to myself, Robert, it's ridiculous, the 900-pound gorilla in the room is the Putnam Hotel and the Greenberg property. I think I'd like to say I could guarantee if you put $20 million into that, it would tip the town. That could be a dangerous statement because investments do fail, but fixing the Greenberg property, I think, is the 900-pound gorilla right now. It really is. One of my ideas for it is the 3S Art Space in Portsmouth, Maine, which puts together, it's a new facility, by the way, I think it's new construction, puts together art gallery, restaurant, and performance space under one roof. I could see that in the Greenberg hardware space, not the whole property. By the way, let's think about positives. I agree with you totally, and the bypass was devastating to Bennington. We lost 1/3 of our attendance overnight. But, if you live here, it's a great convenience. In fact, I tell people, let's stop calling it the bypass. It's a fact of life. It's the connector, and it means we can get in and out of Bennington. Any sophisticated big town has connectors and bypasses. Providence, Rhode Island, you don't go through the middle of town, you go around it. That means we have the responsibility to lure people in. But the connector is useful, you know, it brings people in and out quickly, and you know, North Side Drive is not a bad thing to have in a town. And you may stone me for saying this, but having the Walmart in southwestern Vermont, you know, again, it's something that's here and you can't change it. But if Manchester folks want to shop at Walmart, they have to come to Bennington. You know, let's turn some of those things to our advantage. So other positives I see here, great colleges, quality of life, natural beauty. Being close to New York City is a virtue for Bennington that Burlington does not have, and it's something we should work on. I see opportunities all over the ground in Bennington, some broad opportunities, but specific ones. If I had money in my pocket, I would start a hardware store because it's missing. I'd start a beer bar that serves 80 kinds of Vermont beer because it's missing. Some of these things, entrepreneurial opportunities, seem so obvious to me, I can't figure out why they're not happening here. That's all for me.
What was the beer before the beer bar?
Hardware stores.
But did you get the beer bar?
Yeah. Hardware and beer.
Just don't use power, yeah.
Right, power tools, right.
I'm David Evans, I'm the president of Southern Vermont College, and I've actually been here for 10 months, so not too long at all. And I want to echo the self-image issue, and some of you who've heard me speak in other contexts have heard this also. I've lived recently in Oklahoma City, which has 800,000 people in the metropolitan area, and in rural northwest Iowa, neither of which is within any kind of distance at all of how nice it is here. Oklahoma City has all the resources of a big city, and it's a dump. And you know, there are a lot of sorry if anybody's from there, sorry. You know, and there are a lot of rural areas that, in fact, Northwest Florida has a better economy than we do, but there's absolutely nothing there. And so if you come in from outside and you see what Bennington has, and when I was here interviewing, I kept hearing this, oh, Bennington's such a problem, such a problem. I'm like, are you kidding? I got people who live in Storm Lake, Iowa. This place is great. And that doesn't mean pretending that there are not challenges. What it means is not letting the negatives drive the conversation all the time.
But you know what would be interesting, sorry to interrupt you though, is when you say you came in, it's so nice. What are you identifying as, like when you're coming and you're saying, oh, Iowa, but this was nice.
Right.
What are those things that are?
Well, it's, first of all, I mean, this is not something that we did, any of us, but it's incredibly beautiful here. But also,
are you talking mainly natural?
Both. I mean, we got spectacular
architecture.
you know, the sort of visual texture of the place is marvelous. There are very, very good cultural resources. The museum is terrific. The things that happen up here at Bennington College are marvelous. There's some interesting small galleries we're close to. A lot of other interesting arts communities, all within an hour of here, just a tremendous amount of things like that. These are resources that very, very few places in the United States have. Almost no places in the United States have. And it's a big deal when you're looking at recruiting, you know, highly educated people who, you know, have traveled around the world and those kinds of things. They see this and they think this is a really nice thing. So we've got to stop dabbling in the place. For us, you know, for my interest as the president of SVC, a lot of what's been said here is pretty key. I think a more vibrant downtown would be great for a lot of reasons, and I think many of the things that would serve some of the permanent residents of the town would also be very helpful to us in terms of recruiting students. Because if you have a permanent population that has, you know, creates economic viability for restaurants and those kinds of things, then, you know, we just come along for the ride. Our students just come along for the ride. It would be very helpful to
So
us.
when you say vibrant downtown, are you saying like restaurants?
I'm thinking restaurants, I'm thinking about, at least I know it's never going to be Manhattan, but I think some evening opportunities down there, at least on the weekends, would be really great. I think America and I talked about this a little bit. If we could just figure out how to do it, we might be able to do something, between the colleges. I think that's a very important thing. The Greenberg property is a blight. And I will close with one small anecdote. Like Roberts, I was the chair of the English department at the public university in Milledgeville, Georgia, which is a town very much like Bennington. It's about the same size, made all of its industrial power on incarceration and the largest mental hospital in the South prior to the Civil War, all of which is of course now gone. And there was an old movie palace downtown that was like the Greenberg property, sort of tangled up in weird family disputes and all of that. And the previous president of the college figured out a way to get them to sell it, finally. I think they worked with the city to get it condemned. The university bought it, turned it into a black box theater, put the college bookstore there, had an independent coffee shop, and a downtown that was very much like Bennington's, within a year, became a really vibrant and interesting and engaging one. And that was small. I mean, that was much smaller than redoing the Putnam Hotel, but it stopped this ugly and decaying building from sitting right in the middle of where you walk if you went downtown, and that just changed the way it looked for everybody. So I think finding the right thing to do there will make a tremendous difference and will lead to a lot of these other things, because it will just automatically create things that will draw people down there.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dimitri Garter with Global Z International. We're a family-owned technology company. We employ 20 people in Bennington for 26 years. So I've got 3 pages of talking points. You probably won't hear all of them. But I do want to read one thing that I prepared in advance, which is very briefly what I call the 10 myths about economic development in Bennington. So very briefly, something's wrong with us. So everybody else is getting this right. We're doing something wrong. Our problems are not unique to Bennington. We did this to ourselves, so we caused this. That's not true. Globalization caused most of this. Poor us. So the self-image crisis, right? Doesn't solve anything. It's the fault of, pick your favorite thing. The blame game. Totally unhelpful. There's a silver bullet. So we just need to figure out what the one thing is and solve that. And we know that there's not just one solution. It's too difficult and the problems are insurmountable. Sometimes the little stuff does matter. If we don't fix it, I'll just go somewhere else. I don't think we should be catering to people that are just looking for incentives. We need people that are invested in the community. This is just a down cycle. We've seen this before. The market will correct for this. The data doesn't really support that. We need to start solving this 20 years ago. Montpelier needs to fix this for us. We just need more money from Montpelier. I think that's a solution. And we don't have the resources. So we do have resources. The question is, how are we spending them? Are we utilizing them most effectively? So as far as my vision, agree with a lot of the comments that were already made. Fundamentally, I think JJ hit the nail on the head. We can't recruit and retain our way out of this. I think we have to build more jobs from the ground up. We're a couple of decades late on that. We can still catch up, but I think we have to focus on an environment that is friendly to new business startups and growing the small businesses that we've already got. That's what Bennington and Vermont in general has always been good at. One way we could do that, I think a network of infrastructure, much of which already exists, that goes out and identifies prospects for small businesses and figures out what those individuals need to make their small business startup work and find a way to reduce the risk to them and to the community for those things to happen. I think it's blocking and tackling with small business startups can really make a big difference. I agree with Jim Brown that we shouldn't be in the business of picking and losing, picking the winners and the losers. However, I do think that there's a minimum density of some of the lifestyle, social infrastructure businesses that we've been talking about that we do need. I think we need to identify those strategically and we need to find ways to make those happen rather than just waiting for the lightning to strike. The obstacles, one of the biggest ones, which is going to sound cyclical, is poverty. We never talk about it. I don't hear a lot of that in our economic development conversations. If you want to see the data on poverty, talk to the folks at BCRC. It's very eye-opening. If you want to hear how it's affecting our school system, talk to Jeannie Jenkins at CCB. She has some really powerful thoughts about that. I think another obstacle, quite frankly, is the process, the decision-making structure that we've got. I think, this forum is an excellent example of that. I think this is great. We need feedback. We need input from folks. But when it comes to implementing the strategy and the vision, I think we need to seriously think about how diffuse our decision-making process is. And I'll say, I hope the most ironic thing said in this building today, which is I think some of it is too democratic. There's a role for democracy, and identifying and implementing vision is not necessarily the best fit for that role. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
So I'm Ed Woods. I'm a 10-year resident of Bennington. I'm the president of Union Newspapers, which is the parent company of the Bennington Banner, which by default makes me the publisher of your local newspaper. I am a business owner because I married a business owner here in town, so my wife and I own the Mountain Pine Motel. She's a Bennington native, born and raised here. We have 2 kids in public schools here in Bennington. And by the way, the average lifespan of a newspaper publisher in a community like Bennington is about 5 years. So I'm probably living proof that Bennington isn't a bad place to live because I have fought the fight to stay here, and my intention is to keep doing that. So my kind of vision for the future is to assure that Bennington is a place where we can live and work and do business. And if I look at the kinds of people that do that happily and successfully, I kind of look at myself and my own family. So I'm an employee of a large company that lets me stay in town sometimes, but I travel quite a bit. I'm married to somebody who owns a business here, and we have 2 kids in school. So here's a pretty decent example of the kinds of people that Bennington might like to recruit, with opportunity for work. Maybe we're a bedroom community. We've turned into a bedroom community for me. I'm in town a couple days a week. I'm out of town a couple days a week. We have the resources for my wife to be in business. She has access to resources. And we have a really good public school system that we don't talk enough about. So the vision for the future is to make sure that we are putting that message out there in the places where it belongs. And so I said better community before. And I heard somebody say at the table earlier that recruiting large business is maybe not the first place that we would go. I might agree with that because we have all kinds of other things that we could do faster and first, right? But are we recruiting folks that are perhaps going to work in the capital region to live in Bennington and raise their kids here? And are there resources for the spouse of that family to do something here, work, participate, become an active member of the society? These things are here, we're not promoting it like we probably need to. And then on the side of business that's here, and those larger businesses, or even those medium-sized or smaller businesses, I'm an employer of 20 people here in the Bennington Banner. Qualified professional people are hard to find. So we have a labor pool problem, there's no question about that. We have a kind of a reputation of not being real business friendly on the startup side, right? So it's complicated for people to start a business. We don't have enough positive emphasis on ourselves, and I've heard this said a couple times before it was my turn today. We're sometimes our own worst enemy. And Phil, your first comment was exactly perfect about that bypass and what happened to our community when it opened. And in this room, we should talk about what that bypass did to our community so that we can begin to fix it. On the outside of this room, we should talk about the fact that our community has a really good network of roads, right? But instead, we tend to talk about it as a negative everywhere we go. I'm living it just like you are. But it's a road. It was obviously necessary for one reason or another. You all decided that before I got here. I now live with that road. And so in my feeble mind, I think, well, that road exists for the communities of the people that live here 12 months out of the year. We're not a tourist destination all the time. We are, and that's a large part of our economy, but there are still people like my family and many others who live here 12 months who need the goods and services and the support that a family like that needs. So on the obstacles, I would say negative perception is one of the biggest ones, inside and out of the community. So I think we're negative about ourselves, to ourselves, among ourselves, and that kind of permeates, kind of outside. If you look at if you look at areas right outside of here, like the Berkshires and like the Capital Region, I happen to spend some time in the Berkshires now. We're having the same discussions in the Berkshires. I'm the president and publisher of the newspaper too. We're having the exact same discussions in the Berkshires, guys. So this is not significant to Bennington. I happen to live here, and so I think it's important for my time to be
You
spent.
should probably wrap up.
Yeah. So the vision is to make sure that Bennington is a place to live, to work, and do business.
I can't disagree with anything I've heard, and I can't say I haven't heard it all before. I haven't heard anything new that we haven't all said at other meetings previously. So that's the challenge. How do we turn what we all know to be true into action? And I don't have any better answer than any of you tonight. I think we're just getting things on the table. The bypass, though, I've always thought of as a positive. The fact is that bypass makes it possible to talk to industry about possibly moving a small good business into the area because they have a means of getting their trucks in and out, and it's important in that way. What's bad about it is that if you're coming into town as a tourist, the GPS sends you to 279, not 9 Monument Museum and down into Bennington. Last year I tried. I put up a billboard with everybody's consent, town and so on. I could not get one merchant, not one, to join me. Phil, you were very supportive and I appreciated your support. But I thought that at least 12 merchants would want to advertise that we have Old Bennington, the museum, the West End, and lodging and food downtown. I did it for a solid year. The chamber gave me a plaque at the end of the year. I didn't want a plaque. I wanted to see the billboard stay up. One person told me that it wasn't, there was no way to qualify or quantify the result. And I said, it's good enough for Brownlee Mountain. It's good enough for Southern Vermont College. It was good enough for SDNC. It's good enough for David Yerman to have billboards up over in New York State. It's good enough for Williamstown that has a billboard on 22 to take them into Williamstown. What more proof would you want? We have nobody telling you to come into downtown Bennington as it stands right now. So that's my pitch for the day. But I'm sitting here looking at Dixie, and I hope you tell your story. I won't tell it for you, but you better tell your story because you're one of the leading examples of somebody who did that entrepreneurial thing. Downtown, 4th generation Benningtonian, in my location on Main Street since 1968. I've seen it come and I've seen it go. I can remember when the first store opened on Northside Drive, Grants, before Walmart. And all the merchants on Main Street laughed and said, nobody will ever travel out there to shop. So that's history, but it's a lesson. And I feel so bad when I see these new tiny businesses open on Main Street because they don't have any foot traffic. And unless they got a pocket full of cash, you're going to see different businesses there within a year or two. There's just no way to survive with the foot traffic. I can put my car away and come back in 2 hours and my spot is still there. What's wrong with that picture? The hotel is the key. If we lose that magnificent historic landmark, we're dead. That is the whole tie to downtown Bennington. And if there's a major investment, it should be there.
Amen.
So I'll say that.
Yeah, so let's keep going and maybe push a little bit on what Kathy was saying about the sense that maybe a lot has come up before. And so if there's real priorities for some of these ideas or another idea that you could really see moving forward, kind of focus on that.
My name is Jason Dolnich. I'm a partner at MSK Engineering. We're a civil engineering consulting firm located in downtown Bennington. I wrote a lot of notes, and it's basically I'm out of new ideas. But I am surprised, and I guess I shouldn't be, that there's so much consensus already. And I think it's, Greenberg property development is a focus. We need a vibrant downtown, complete with incubated entrepreneurial activities. I would say both business, I would say focus on not just sort of production, but also retail, finding a way to, create that critical mass. I think somebody used a different terminology. I think increasing marketing for outsiders is important, and I think that it makes for a vibrant community, but I also think that it's as important for us to acknowledge the fact that I think we all have, in one way or another, the people have spoken, that we've chosen this place for one good reason or another, but it's the place that we've chosen to live. And I think we could probably all agree, at least in some part, that perhaps we as individuals, if we put some sort of professional ceiling goal ahead of us, that perhaps Bennington isn't the place that we would peak out, but that we've chosen this place for other reasons, either because we grew up here, like many of us at the table, or because we found it and we love it. But that we should make it a goal to create the vibrant community that we want for ourselves. And we should acknowledge the fact that it's not really economically viable if you pencil it out on paper. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that and to say, yes, we might be able to create a sort of test cases and ask what is the tipping point, but perhaps we should sort of throw that out the window at the same time and say, you know what, investments fail, and we should all commit some resource to the success of a shared vision with no expectation of getting anything out of it other than a community that we want to see. And that would be, I think, I would think, like my part would be to help an entrepreneur work its way through the environmental permitting requirements and understand that if we believe that person meets very specific criteria, like a downtown grocer or a certain type of retailer or a certain type of business, that we commit those resources to get them started. And it's either through donation or investment. I did it, I happen to be fortunate enough to be part of a much smaller version of what I think needs to happen in Bennington over in Cambridge. Cambridge is a tiny community. It's 1,800 people, so it's approximately 10% of the size. We did a project probably 10% of the size of what Bennington needs, but we picked a very specific, very discrete block called the Hubbard Block. It contained 8 buildings that were all self-storage units that were falling apart. It was this big mud pit in the back, but they also happened to be the place, they also happen to be some of the most historic freight railroad buildings in the country. And it all started because one very important community member walked into the executive director's office of Hubbard Hall, and while they were talking, she said, "What's the most important thing that you need?" And Benji sort of, in a slow, lumbering motion, looks out the window and points out to this, wasteland and says, "We really could use a parking lot." And that one beginning conversation turned into a very specific, discrete needs assessment for the downtown, which turned into questions of what is it that you need to make businesses surprise. And we surprisingly found that everybody had similar problems. And I think we're all doing the same thing. We've all been thinking the same thing, we've all been feeling the same way, but then, it takes us all sort of sitting down together, writing a list, making a discrete list, and going after it in a very discrete way. And I don't see any reason why we can't do that with the Putnam Block. And identify all of the elements of a community that we want to see, that we see Bennington is lacking, and go after it. And do it either through sweat equity or donation or both. And it's either can be, we did it through a 501c3, but it doesn't have to be that way. But I think it all has to stem from a commitment to a community. It also has to go in with the full expectation that we may get nothing out of it. So that's,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Okay.
Jeremy Jerome, President Jerome Construction. Been born and raised in Bennington, Vermont. Founded Jerome Construction here. Business is hard to create in Bennington and sustain. But I want to talk much about that. I want to point out that there's so many very small and very large moving parts to keep something sustainable as well as to revitalize something. And I think the biggest conversation is not revitalizing Bennington. I think Bennington, in a lot of ways, is doing very well. And I'm going to make this short because I know time is short, but I do just want to say Southern Vermont College, in the 50 years that I've lived here, Bennington College, in the 50 years that I've lived here, Southwestern Vermont Healthcare, are at their best in my opinion. And I think it's very noticeable to our community. And the collaboration that's happening with many small businesses as well as institutions is really starting to come to the table, and it's happening. Back to the small things, we got to remember these institutions and these bigger things as well as the small things. The small business person has to help the big ones too. And the Ninja Trail, and I've heard about it for 15 years. I've contributed to it, we've talked about it. Do I think it's going to happen? Yes. But it's those little things that are going to make Bennington much better. Pathways, bike paths, pedestrian access from North Bennington, Bennington College to Bennington. And then the Hotel Putnam. I believe that that is the revitalization to Bennington. And it's going to, in my opinion, happen through that collaboration of the institutions, which you'd mentioned on Dave, and I know there's been conversation, but I think that's great. And that's what will create those and make those businesses underneath thrive. And there needs to be a hospitality. You have to have boots on the ground in downtown to get Bennington to come back and to attract people. But I think the glass is half full, not half empty in Bennington. Thank you.
So, Tom D. from Southwestern Vermont Healthcare. So I've been here, be 6 years next month, and 5 kids, a wife who's an artist, and maybe an example of kids who are not looking to run away from Bennington. Actually, young kids who would like to stay here, live here, and make it a life. They love the area. But you know, we have to get off the dime here, folks. We've been talking about this since I've been here, and I'm sure before that. And you know, I have to applaud Tom for pulling this together. This is not a select board issue. I mean, if we think the select board is going to solve this problem, we're really kidding ourselves. This has to be a true public-private partnership and not just lip service. I mean, we had a presentation a few months ago by the folks from St. Albans, and I thought there was a lot of great stuff in that presentation, stuff we could learn from. What was very clear is that both the public side and the private side stepped up, and we're going to have to make investments here. I think the Greenberg property is a great site to work on. I mean, I think that's something we could all rally around, and I, for one, in our institution, would rally around that. And we can participate. We have to be asked, but we're willing to be involved. We're in the midst, in the next few months, we're going to be announcing major initiatives with a partner of ours. And these initiatives will cost, or will be an investment of many, many millions of dollars. And I have to be able to bring people into this community to live and to work in the name of physicians, a number of physicians, and we need to change. You know, we need to really step up together and make this a special place. You talk about a vision. I could see this being the gateway to Vermont, a place that is known for its quality of life and for its cultural amenities and for economic vibrancy. I mean, this is a great place. And when you think about the assets that we have here with the higher education institutions and with the cultural amenities and with the natural beauty, and the list goes on. We need to start to market the Bennington brand. And the Bennington brand is the county, the whole area. And we need to partner together with that. Now, I came from the Hudson Valley, where you had 7 or 8 areas all fighting for their own piece of the pie, and together they got smart and said, let's work together and create a Hudson Valley brand. Not a Dutchess County, or not a Putnam County, or not Ulster County, a Putnam, an Ulster County brand. We can create a Bennington County brand here. But we need to step up, we need to partner, we need to make investments. Some of the major organizations that are in this room today, I think we're going to have to be willing to make those investments. If we look at some of the weaknesses, I'll look at one, an obvious one to me is transportation. Maybe the colleges, maybe the hospital, maybe others sit down and come up with a strategy to help with that transportation problem, because we need more traffic around here, and it's hard for people to travel. So I think together, we're right for stepping forward. I think we do need a real plan, a strategic plan that is not going to sit on a shelf. It's one which is going to be acted upon, and I think we have to have timelines and deliverables that we need to look at. I think we have to look at the government structure here to make sure it's structured in a way that delivers results. These are all good people. This is not a shot against the people. It's a shot against sometimes the process we have here. We have to make sure we create a system of accountability. So I think the time's right, but it's ticking, and we have to start moving here.
Thank you.
My name's Dixie Zenz from Abacus Automation. My partner and I started Abacus 30 years ago. We got a lot of help from BCIC, Bennington County Industrial Corporation, to move into the incubator they had up on Water Street in North Bennington. Great start for us. It was low cost to get started with great space, expandable space. We went from 1 room to 2 rooms to 3 rooms, and then finally we grew out of that, which is what incubators are supposed to do. My feeling is that Bennington needs an incubator, and it's in the process right now trying to figure out how to do that, but it's something I think is super important. We've been very fortunate. Our company designs and builds automation equipment. We send it all around the world. I think the economy is very strong. It's coming back. I mean, we see, when I hear everyone saying, oh, the economy is down and oh, everything's terrible here, it's not. And we want to attract businesses here, but I think to home grow them is much more important. It's just like most of our employees come from Bennington County, or at least this area. They love it here, they live here. We've hired many graduates from RPI, come in, they're great. They work 2 years, gone, they're out of here. So we try to concentrate on bringing people in from the area. Workforce development, huge. We need workforce development. We're working on it. Gene Jenkins and lots of folks are involved in that. It's something that's really, really important to get the folks that are available here to step up a little bit, get some training, and then we'll hire them. I don't need college graduates for all my jobs. I do need for some, but not all of them. Everyone says college, college, college. Not that we don't need college. But we also need people that are going to put machines together and wire them and program them and do all the things that we need to do. So workforce development isn't just preparing them for college. It's preparing them for the work that is available out there. I have another hat at BCIC. I'm on board there. We are doing things trying to fill the Lasan building right now. We're negotiating and trying to get the track where we had a big event scheduled, and because of the issues with the railroad, things fell through. That's being renegotiated. Hopefully that's going to take off next year. So events like that would be very helpful to this area. and we're talking about the shires, and I love that idea. The thing that I think we should do right as of today for everybody in this room and everybody in Bennington is what Robert said. It is the Bennington Connect. And that other word should be never said again. I think that is terrific. It is one of the best things I've heard because we need to connect to Bennington. And that is, you are right on that one. I've just been very lucky in, in running our business. It's, we've had ups and downs. We flow with the economy. We've seen ebbs and flows, but I see the economy out there. There's businesses, we deal with businesses, all medical and aeronautic, all different kinds of businesses, and they're all pushing forward. They're all moving forward. The economy, when I hear the economy in Bennington, it's terrible. Okay, Plasan moved out. We have Command, we have the hospital, we have NSK. We have a lot of small companies that are supporting Bennington, and I think a good incubator here. Certainly the Greenberg property would be huge for Bennington, and I agree with everybody else on everything.
So a couple of things. I'm Marika Silver. I'm the president of Bennington College. Welcome, those of you who've not been here before. We bring about 5,300 visitors here a year, and we have, David, similarly, a particular kind of visitor. So they're coming to see if they want their kids to live here for at least 4 years. So they're coming as tourists, but they're also coming to see if this is a place for them or a place for their children to live. And we actually do have a number of families who have bought second homes, mostly second homes, but sometimes primary residences, or have bought second homes that they turn into primary residences over time because their kids have gone to Bennington, and long after their kids have left Bennington, graduated, gone off into the world, they want to be here in this community. Obviously, we have alums who stay as well, but that number is going down, the number of alums who can stay here, partly because young people want quality rental housing. And if they can't find quality rental housing, they cannot stay here. It's not a matter of whether they want to stay here or not. So we can have all of the beautiful amenities we want. You know, we can have the rockinest nightlife. If they can't find a place to live that's decent, then they're not going to stay. So I would put that on the obstacles list. Obviously, that doesn't include the 428 employees that we have here, many of whom live in this community, some of whom don't, and the 700 undergraduates, and that number is going up steadily. We also spend about $9 million a year on buying goods and services from Vermont businesses. This community is incredibly, has been very welcoming to me, but I will say that it is largely illegible and not transparent. So all of these extraordinary assets, and David and I got in a little trouble at one point for mentioning some of these things. We won't repeat that, but although I see the cameras are on. One of the pieces of my vision for Bennington is that all of Bennington's assets would be visible to all in and beyond our community, and that the message of our community is that we are inclusive and welcoming. In order to do that, I think we need a number of things, a vibrant downtown, a number of the things that have been mentioned would be part of that, walkability, transportation, but also a kind of coordination that is related to but not the same as what Dimitri mentioned. So it's not just about having the strategic plan and executing it and having somebody or some buddies who are accountable. It's also about making sure that all of our nonprofits are coordinated. It's about making sure that the school schedules are coordinated in such a way that you don't have after-school programs that the same kid might want to go to, but one of them ends at 3 and the other one starts at 2:45. And they're 2 miles away, so the kid can't walk in the snow, or could, but won't walk in the snow, and so you need a transportation system to help them get there. These things are relatively low-hanging fruit. They would make this community much more welcoming. You have to be looking for a service to know that it's there. It's almost impossible to have it just be apparent to you, right? And it's not so easy to get connected to. It's easier now with Facebook. Obviously, it's easier if you're a college president. But when I think about the staff and faculty who move here, if they want to get out of what we call our Bennington College bubble, it's not so easy. It's not so easy because the services that organizations are not immediately apparent. So I would love for us to see, and a way to do that would be a coordinated web presence, with somebody who's actually in charge of it, and a relatively easy way to update all kinds of information, and would enable then ideally multiple businesses. It's kind of like the billboard idea, but in an online format, so and maybe relatively low cost, because you can scale it up much more easily in terms of being able to go into a portal and be able to see all of the different kinds of pay, free, whatever, after-school programs that are available for kids. So if you're in Red Hook, Brooklyn, and you're thinking, well, I'd like to move to Vermont, where would be a good place to go? The most important thing to me, because I own my own business, right? And I don't need any of this business support, so good to have. The most important thing to me is that this is a place where I can raise my kids and I can be part of this community. We send no message outside of our community that anybody else can be part of it. So that would be, those are my main things. I got other things on my list, and I'll stop there.
Good, thank you.
I'm Dave Newell from Mills Insurance, been in downtown Bennington for 100 years. I've been there for 80 of those years. Excellent comments by the distinguished speakers. I only have one thing to point out, and one of our best assets in this area, and Jamie's pointed to it, so did Jonah, is outdoor recreation, which is a county-wide experience. We have a lot of things here that maybe just need a little bit more publicity and marketing to make this work, which includes Prospect Mountain in Woodford, skiing, hiking, biking, fishing, the bike path ties into that, which Jamie mentioned, kayaking. Certainly North and South Shore have fine assets here. And this is something we have available right now. It's a matter of perhaps telling the story to the outside world that this is available here. In addition to that, perhaps the BBC, the Chamber, and others can continue to work on events that bring outdoor recreation enthusiasts here. I think the marathon's been a good thing, which still goes on, the Shards Marathon. Manchester has the half marathon. We had the Snowshoe Nationals here 2 years ago at the dead of winter, which I think was a great thing for our town. And similar things, we can expand on that. I think that's a half-full thing for us, having these assets, and it's a matter of perhaps promoting them and expanding them further.
Thank you.
Brian McKenna, DB McKenna. I agree with lots of what I've heard here, and we all know I love the community. I wrote about it in the banner for 4 years and all that, so I'm not going to really spend time on that. Some of this is interesting. Kathy, I love your point about how many plans could we have on what to do. We have lots of those, and I think, I've got my stump speech that I won't do largely because of the cameras, but I think we run into a couple of things in this community. I think one of the big ones is that we have an extremely disenfranchised community. I think that a lot of folks, even those sitting around the table, don't have faith any longer in the direction or how we're going to get there. I think that that is a real issue that we have. It's a huge hurdle that we have to get past and to get over to believe, in both each other and our leaders, and really having a direction to go and then going after it. I think that right now in this community there's an incredible fear of failure. I think that we spend so much time focusing on everything that's gone wrong over the past 2 decades that we no longer think we can succeed, and consequently we do very little, and the few things that we do we struggle with. We're fortunate to have some of the bigger events like our Fest has taken off, but at the same time we then see things like the car show that have gone to the wayside. I think that we're to a point now where we're so afraid of failure that we do very little, that we won't even look at doing something bigger. And it's wonderful to hear everybody talking about doing something bigger, because I think that the plans are actually aligning for it. I think the colleges, Jamie, you pointed out the fact that we really have some incredibly strong institutions that are, peaking, at the right time, and we could really harness that and take a swing for the fences. And I think that doing that would really help us move this community out of this rut and help us, get the ship righted. And so it's exciting to hear so many people sharing a similar vision for that. One of the other things that I find interesting is, we talk about the shires, which is great, and, Ed, you mentioned the idea of being a bedroom community. One of the things that amazes me is we love to talk about how in Vermont, we're the redheaded stepchild down here. And that Montpelier is never going to give us attention. Heck, I complain, I can't get alumni to come down to my event from Burlington down here, and they complain that I don't do enough up there because that's where everybody is. Yet, here we are in our corner of the community, and we make our way around the table, and aside from mentioning that we're a bedroom community, we don't talk about the fact that we've got RPI 40 minutes away. Union College, about an hour, Saratoga 50 minutes, Williams College 20 minutes. You can go all the way down to the Berkshires. Some of the things that amazes me is people get disappointed when, we have, for the road pitch, we had an entrepreneurial group win that was from North Adams, and people were disappointed that they won. Incredibly short-sighted. They think that it should have been somebody from Bennington. If we're going to get out of this rut, we got to look beyond these walls. It can't be this Chinese wall, that you get 5 minutes away from downtown and you hit the New York border, and we're done there. We've got to embrace what's around here and leverage all these incredible assets that we've just spent the past hour talking about. But let's go out and bring people in, even if they're not coming in with a Vermont license plate on their car.
Hi, I know we're pressed for time. I'm Abigail Martin. I think I win the prize for the newest member of the Bennington community. I bought Powers Market in the building 6 months ago. So, and as you can see, I'm not young, but I'm not old either. And I chose to move here. I will give you my other background of the last 10 years because this is why I wanted to be at this table today. I spent the last 10 years in DC lobbying for Fortune 500 companies. And a lot of what I did in my early career was I sat at the table with communities just like this and people like BMW and said, you can put a plant here in Greenville, South Carolina. I believe in you. And so I know there was sort of chagrining the big business, but I've been on the table with the CEOs. You guys have it all here. You guys have everything a CEO of a big company wants. Because at the end of the day, that big CEO company, Anheuser-Busch, you name it, they still have a community of 150 people that have kids, that have spouses, that want the things that are around this community. They want good schools. They want access to connector, whatever we're labeling it as this, if we're in the language now. But they want everything that this community has to offer. And so I know we poo-poo going after a bigger clientele. I am here to say I will be a resource for as long as it takes. I'll be here for the next couple of decades at least, if not longer. I love this place, and I've grown to love it every day I've lived here even more. And I have to say, I know I don't want to be lofty because I think these are all about baby steps and getting to where we need to go. But I don't want to take some of those bigger things off the table because I believe, and I've sat at the table, and I can tell you this story, my first year working in DC, we went down to Greenville to scope the site. And the reason we do this is because we want to partner with the political assets that come with that, etc. And this woman who had lived in Greenville, South Carolina, Greenville, Spartanburg area for 25 years, had been out of work, she was discouraged, she was, I wouldn't say dissimilar to some of the people that are here. She stood up at this open mic and said, 6 months ago, I can't do the southern accent because we're on cameras and it would be insulting, but 6 months ago I was out of work and now I'm driving a BMW. And she was happy as a clam. And I say this coming from DC and it's a soundbite, but jobs, 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 jobs. It changes attitudes, it changes perception, it changes people's lives. And if we can look at that aspect of it, big, small, I don't care. And like I said, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. They come to Powers Market and buy a sandwich, all the more better. But for this community, I'd like to look at, and I think the way to start this and the way we used to do it is look at some industries. Let's target some specific industries we can go after. I think one of the obstacles is a lack of effort, coordinated resources, so that when we go to defense contractors, when we go to small beer brewers, when we go to, you fill in the blank, healthcare, you have these things you can say, here's our bullet point for innovation, here's our access to secondary education, here's our access to transportation and infrastructure, here's our access to XYZ. And if you can pull all that together so that you have a crisp vision and then target some specific industries, And I don't want to change the face of the entirety of Bennington, but you get somebody in the teen connectivity building, you get somebody in the Pakistan building, and we're talking about 100 jobs for maybe it's a big name, but at the end of the day, these plants are run by people that live there. And people that live there want the things that are here in Bennington. They do. I know it. I've sat across the table from them. When a CFO makes a decision, it's not just about the numbers to him or her. It's about, is my executive going to be happy there? Are their kids going to be happy? Am I going to be able to say we can be there for years and years and years? And so I know it's a little lofty, but the one thing I'd say is let's get some coordinated effort with resources. I'm happy to provide it. I'm happy to give sweat equity, do whatever it takes to figure some things out, to get some jobs into Bennington, because I really do believe, and I hate to say that to sound good for DC, but they change everything in a community. I've seen it. I've been at the ribbon cuttings. I think, not to say the tipping point, but it can tip some things. And the last thing I'll say is attitude is everything. If everybody in this room can agree that we are going to go out there with marching orders, that everything is positive about Bennington, that we love what we do here and we love this community, there is no stopping it. So if we can all agree upon that and whatever we want to call a connector, then we can all walk away here saying, I love being a part of this community, I want to see some change, where do I sign up to give some sweat equity to it? So that's
I'm Peter Stromgren. I'm a retired businessman. Actually, I spent well over 35 years in business development at multinational companies. But basically at the basic level, at the company level. I've lived here, my wife and I, for over 19 years. And as I heard all of the things that were said, and I agree with most of what was here, I'll just make some comments. One of the things a few weeks ago, somebody called me up and said, we need some information on the Clark, where I do some volunteer work. And so I can do that, and I got the information, and I went to the Bennington Chamber to deliver what she asked for. She didn't work there. So they said, we'll go up to the center up near the connector that we just put in. Well, she doesn't work there. She works at BBC. So I went down there. And I'm thinking, this is very indicative of Bennington. We're pulling in different directions. We've got 2 or 3 organizations doing the same thing. Why? And one of the other comments about, I was at the St. Albans presentation, and I was struck by a number of things. One, energy of what they were doing in that community. They were working hard to figure out solutions to problems that they needed to do there. What also struck me was there was one person who was driving it, that person was a part of that vision. He certainly reached out to within the community, and those people were a part of it, but there was a driver, a coordinator. It made things happen. It was a clear thing. You walk in the door at his office, and you stated what you needed, or your comments, and that's all you needed to do. You didn't need to go to 15 other places with your hat in your hand. The part of that is I think, need to, we've talked about a bunch of things, and the common voice is very important. But one other thing I'd like to point out is when we first moved here, the first thing we heard, and we didn't have our children were in college at the time, the school system's terrible. And I got news for you. I've been paying attention to our school system. It's pretty damn good. But if you listen to people around the community, it's not. But we do well with our students who do well go to good colleges or stay in the community and are good active members, but we've got to get behind our community and start saying that we do things well and stop saying we're not doing things well. So that's all I have to say. I think there's a lot of good things to say here.
Thank you. Hey, thank you, everyone. So, I'm so sorry.
Sheila Harden, I'm the owner of Bennington Potters. I'm new at it, and I've been teaching myself how to do it. And what I understand is that Bennington Potters cannot be successful unless Bennington is successful. The fact that we have customers that are on 10, 20, 30-year cycles. We need to be bringing people in from the outside. And so I've been teaching myself how to market my company and my strategy for doing that, because we have our prices set at the lowest possible amount that keeps us in business. So I cannot use any of the culturally conventional things of sale, discount, et cetera. So the question is, how do I add value to the Bennington Potters proposition? And I've been doing it by thinking of us and talking about ourselves inside our company as the hosts to our community at large. And so, for instance, Kathy, I have purchased the hardcover insert of the Berkshire Visitors Bureau, which is a kind of billboard, for $7,900. I've purchased it because I want to advertise Bennington, because I know that Bennington Potters, we have a reasonable brand, but we are way too tiny, way too fragile. We cannot possibly bring people here. We need to basically market the whole town. So I've been learning how to do that and thinking about how to do that. And I can tell you that I have all kinds of examples of ways in which I can set myself on fire. And I have managed to set some other people on fire. I was one of the founders of Four Corners North, and I won't tell the story of that, but that was just three of us getting together and deciding to pull an action. And what I know is that we have to be able to set ourselves on fire. It's a long game. It's full of lots of heartbreaking experiences, and we have a huge amount of resource. This is an absolutely rich place, but the opacity, the lack of coordination, and we're all in little turrets or little tunnels. And so that business, to me, starting to talk and then having actors and describing who the different actors are. I say to you that going for the small business, owner-operated business, that's the cool thing. Center for the Advancement of Public Action. I would say to you that somebody like me, I own my business 100%, except for the bank and the IRS. I owe obeisance to nobody, okay? I have the ability to make a decision really fast. I'm interested in being used by other people in this community. You have a more complicated structure. You have a more complicated structure. You have a more complicated structure. And you, sir, the biggest employer in town, probably have a hugely complicated structure. I'd love it if we could understand that we need to articulate actors. There's action movements that can happen. Bennington could be the town that, fill in the blank. We're just the right size. We have just the right amount of plasticity of our government. We have everything accessible. We can assemble ourselves like this. We could really set the world on fire, because all of our problems are problems that are everywhere in our country. And our country's in trouble because we don't have solutions to really important problems. And we can develop them here by just doing it. But I think it's figuring out who we are as actors, and then making relationships, and then making another relationship, and another relationship, and not worry about the structures so much. I mean, the structures are part of the tools that we use. It's improvisation, opportunism, and going ahead and deciding that you're going to fail faster. So that's my speech.
Okay, we have a half hour. Everybody can keep going. It's a long session, but excellent. Yeah, we're kind of not taking questions from that. Oh, what's up? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Is that?
No, the select board is here to observe and to listen.
Oh, okay.
And
that's what I didn't know.
Oh, really? Wait a second. Wait a second. I can't.
Wait, Jim?
Tom.
You're out of order?
Since we only have a half hour, maybe at the very end, we could wrap up. But since we have a half hour now, the last thing on the agenda was next steps. Yes, Tom.
Tiny thing of low-hanging fruit. We have to rewrite the Wikipedia page. It's atrocious. And it should be a little group that gets together.
No, that's great. I mean, everybody uses Wikipedia.
Right.
So
in relation to that, what would you recommend now for next steps? You have the selectmen sitting here. You have all these people out here that are also would be willing, I'm sure, to get involved. We have so many people out in Bennington in the town who aren't here that need to be included eventually in this conversation. And I'm sure they would be willing to get involved. So what are the next steps? Because I think that's something everybody's raised, is that The conversations have happened in the past. This is a fantastic one today, but now what? Yeah.
Maybe I would put it another way. So first I would affiliate myself with Tom's comment about actually needing a plan, needing a clear articulation of accountability, timeline, and whether that means there are fewer organizations focused on economic development, I don't know, whether there's a consolidation, or whether it means that it's just much clearer what each of those entities has responsibility for under the umbrella of a shared vision. I don't have a view, I don't know enough about the economic development entities in town to know what the right structuring of that is. But I do believe, and others have heard me say this, that we need a clearly articulated vision, and we need a plan to get to that vision, and it has to be very clear to all of us and those around the broader table whose responsibility is what. Right? And in order to do that, it seems to me that we also need to figure out what we don't know, that we need to know in order to act. I'm all for fail faster, I absolutely affiliate myself with that too. But what are the things that we don't know around this table? So we've been going around saying what we do know. What questions would you all love to have answered so that we could get to that strategic plan?
Okay. Anybody else?
Just to add to that, I believe that the town of Bennington has a plan. It's a 5-year plan. I think that needs to be dragged out and looked at. And what is there that makes sense, and what is in there that needs to be augmented, and what needs to be added. I think we need to be looking at this outside of the select board. I think it needs to be a group of business people in the community that are going to take on that, to structure it, to put it out there, and then let it start to develop its own life. Doesn't mean that we all have to be doing it all the rest of our lives, but to get something going that's cohesive, to be able to say to the community, here it is, and what do you think of this? One of the comments that struck me, someone said early on, we're too democratic. We need to start be looking at how do we make decisions that are the best for the community, instead of saying, well, that's a good idea, but now the community has to vote on it and talk about it and machinate it, and then all of a sudden it's 5 years later and we're not anywhere. I think the Ninja Bike Path was a good example of a great idea, just allowed to float along without any support or management. And I think those are the kind of things we need to get our hands on and start moving forward.
Yes.
Can I just add something? I think that this was spoken to, but I want to say it again a little bit more clearly. An inventory of work that's already in progress is absolutely critical. I wouldn't know where to begin to invest my time and my resources if I didn't know what was already in progress and who's responsible for it.
And I'll just build on that and say we need clear leadership, and that goes on what Peter was saying. I mean, maybe I'm just saying it another way, but we need a clear leader and leadership.
That's the one thing that I came away from the St. Albans presentation. The guy who was running it was the leader.
I guess the thing that struck me the most is we do have to believe in ourselves, and I think we get down on ourselves in the daily life of Bennington many times. But I also hold the town itself responsible for believing in ourselves, and I would like to see some type of action where the town comes up with a plan to somehow buy the Greenberg building and bring investors in from the community that can afford $1 or $100,000. But I think the town should spearhead, because that is so integral to our success. I think the town should move ahead and believe in this town. And if you believe in it as town people, the rest will follow.
Can I just ask a question? This is just me, naivete, but do we have a list of, so you talk about these places that we would invest. You guys know because you live here and you've lived here all your lives. Is there a one-pager on each one of these? Is there one pager on Putnam? Is there a one-pager on a Putnam? I mean, all these things, again, I'm new, so I'm looking at it a little bit from the perspective of an outside investor or company or whoever else. A database of all these things that you guys know and love by heart. It'd be great if you had a one-pager, some marketing on the front and then some data-driven stuff on the back for every single building that is not inhabited right now, for every single place that you want to see some investment. That's the first thing you need. If you want to attract an investor, we're going to need some information on it that we can send them so that we're not calling them on a phone call and trying to do a pitch or trying to get the right person. So some sort of inventory of every building that we have that's not currently being used, an inventory of companies that we were going after that have left, an interview with the company, why did they leave? Can I talk to that person? I want to know. I mean, I just have so many, like, testimonials from current businesses. I want you to say a testimonial, and then I want to pitch it to every single company that's like yours. I want Abacus testimonial, and I want you to have a, you know, some sort of talking points, and then I want to go pitch every company that's like yours, and I'm taking you with me. So, I mean, I'm happy to send around an email of all the things that we could do, so I'm not rallying them off here, but you guys all know them and love them by heart, but to pitch an outside company for them, we need data and some really cool marketing with some messaging. And that gets to marketing Bennington too.
I think this may have been said before in terms of making it readily available and transparent. Those pieces and parts exist in different formats in different places. Some pretty, some not as pretty. Some have been prettied up for marketing, some not. But your point earlier about making that available to the outsider.
Right, or just knowing who I can contact to get them, that kind of thing.
But believe in us, town officials, we'll come behind you. You put a contract on that building, figure it out, and we'll do the rest. That's your challenge.
Kathy, I think they participated in what we tried to do in the middle school.
Excuse me. This is really for the table down.
I think that I love this idea because I'm thinking about John Barrett down in North Adams on Masmoka. I'm thinking about the leadership piece, but I do think that for our government to go ahead and step up for that property then becomes a rallying point, because we all agree about that. So that then lets us put the development of Bennington in some sense as a referendum. I don't mean up or down, but in other words, will we get enough investment? I think that's an amazing idea.
I guess I would challenge that concept by saying that I think that the looking to the government solely as the first step is fine, but I would challenge all of us at the table to say that we're going to step up to the same plate at the same level with the same level of investment. Maybe differently, but that we all sort of agree that we will be the first actor with the government, and so that we form a powerful public-private partnership, and we leverage our expertise as well as our financial resources together.
I can look at that.
And I would point you to, all these ideas that there was a lot of consensus around, some low-hanging fruit, some bigger investments. And so part of, I think, would be how to organize as part of this strategic plan. What are the ones that around this table and other people in Bennington would get behind? Because if 5 of these happened in 1 year, right? So it wasn't just one thing, but there were several of these that were tried. That starts to build, right? A critical mass. So I think it would be, I'm sure there's a way that this will be disseminated to everybody and organized. We can organize this and clumping them with things that are connecting. And I think that, what you just mentioned, it's like, what are the public-private partnerships that might start to come together to look at some of these?
Let's just make one. Let's just go ahead and make a public-private partnership. Let's identify the first 3 low-hanging fruit items and go after them.
Right, let's just group these together and say what's the biggest priority and go on.
Because coming up with a comprehensive plan is fantastic, but we can spend a lot of time doing that and sort of end up feeling the same level of inertia.
There was a wonderful partnership years ago that saved Southern Vermont College of private individuals who bought up a mortgage that was causing some serious problems at the college. And I don't know the details of it, I wasn't involved, but Peter might have been, his father was. And so we've done it before, and it was very integral to Southern Vermont's success to stay on the viable side. We can do it.
Yes.
Can I suggest that right now this group commits that we will start to meet on a regular basis, and we will drive the change. We'll come up with little things and big ideas that will partner, because we can't, we do have a structure here, but we have to drive it here. and maybe someone like Tom could be involved with this group. And we can't pull the whole select board in, because we don't want to get this into that type of arena.
That's right.
But I think we should.
Not that kind of democracy. We don't want that kind of democracy.
But we have to commit towards doing it, towards meeting, and towards coming up with those, going after the low-lying fruits and the bigger ideas too, because it's both.
Exactly, we have to avoid doing what, a lot of what I'm hearing coming out of this table is ready, fire, aim. And we've got to not do that, because when you do that, 6 months from later, you're all saying, what happened?
So
I don't like you.
when we
You
get
don't
our
know what I
act
want.
together, we can certainly then sit down in a more formal setting and talk about what we want to do.
I think it's
I've got-
both. I mean, that's what I would be saying in terms of structuring. You need a strategic plan, but then you also, there are probably specific things that you know might start to build on
And there's
things.
funding available, by the way, to do things.
Real
That's
quick,
right, you can always do that.
And I've got to go to Neve's Christmas concert, but no, just echoing that, because I think that's the biggest thing. I think that if all these people around the table wanted to have cameras on them and wanted to be in the banner every day, we would have run for the select board, but at the same time, all the people around this table have a lot of really good ideas and could make a lot of change happen. And it starts just like what you're saying, Tom. I think it's bringing everybody together, not in an arena in which it's an arena in which we can talk candidly and we can really put it out there what needs to get done, identify what needs to get done, and then identify how to do it. And I think that's one of the biggest steps, is doing it in a forum which allows candor and openness. So I think that, Tom, I wholeheartedly agree with your idea of that.
So I would commit certainly to doing that, to hosting as often as people want us to host. And I think what we're probably going to need to do within that is figure out, to your point about accountability, which one of us around the table, with partners maybe from outside of this group, but which one of us around the table is going to take on, and maybe it's three people talking about Greenberg, so that they actually figure out a plan. They say, okay, now, Tom, we need you to do this. Bennington College, we need you to do that. The Bank of Bennington, we need you to do this. And see if people are willing to play.
The next step is, when are we meeting again?
Yeah. And can we meet by Skype?
Well, is there a way that, again, I know we all just met today, but again, we all need to get each other's contact information, all that good stuff.
I think
that we, in this moment, appoint a chair. Because of the what?
This is all just talk.
Yes, so.
I nominate Peter, see, he's not, had great ideas.
Oh, okay. I'll got the time.
All in favor?
Aye.
So is it, we're happy to host or not?
Yes.
Yeah, we're happy to
I think
continue.
that would make sense.
What is the communication mechanism to set up meetings and discuss ideas? Is there-
Peter's gonna work with Tom on that.
Yeah,
He'll
get
back
everybody's
to us.
email and then figure out next time.
Facebook?
And I'll volunteer as a secretary.
Great.
Great.
Now,
So Jason, then, the thing that.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, to figure out which one of these things we want to take on.
I think we need to decide.
Oh, we'll
So that the
figure it out
next
together.
one.
Yeah, and so with Peter, we can get the information to everybody with Mike and Tom and disseminate the information and then make a plan for whatever the next meeting process is to move forward.
Can I ask one more thing?
Yes.
Which is, by some happenstance, I ended up sitting in this central table, but I see a lot of incredible talent on the other tiers here, people that care about this town, that came here to hear about this. Can we please get your information also?
Yes,
Because
that's
you
a
need
great
to be part
idea.
of this.
Here,
This
here.
is the entire town, it's not just the
Absolutely.
state.
Absolutely. And people who aren't here too. So would you put your contact information?
We're ready to wrap it up?
All right, is everybody?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm never gonna look at that clock the same way. We do have some fine tuning for this clock.
Mr. Chairman, I want to speak. I have something I have to say.
Yes, yeah, should we just give a minute since we have like
I'll be very
about
brief,
10 minutes?
please.
Be very brief. Anybody in the outside who wants to say something very brief?
You know, as many of you may know, I formerly had a food cart on Main Street in front of Greenberg, so I fed most all of you. And those of you who haven't come to eat, why not? But anyway, the one issue that we've danced around, and it goes to SVC, SVMC, and Bennington College, is those two colleges have been disparate elements, unrelated to the downtown. And a year ago or so,
I floated the idea of a bond for the Greenberg property. We have all the architectural needs for the foundation within this room with all of you. If we could create a blueprint that would captivate and build on that piece of property with all of you folks here, we could go to the public and float a bond. The current price that the Greenbergs are asking is $2.75 million. So if we get it down, 2.2, good.
Progress.
Yes, but if we could create a blueprint, what we would do with it, perhaps a living learning center with SVC, SVMC, and Bennington College, where students come and live and create a more vibrant downtown, which is fundamental to the downtown, and bring in teachers and their families, as well as other businesses. This is an idea that we can get around, and I think that the people of Bennington would support the floating of bond to buy it.
Thank you. You also could put some value on the project. And
Absolutely.
You could show Greenbergs that they can have $1.5 million in their pocket 6 months from now, because here's how we're going to sell it to the community. It's not worth 2.2, Mr. Greenberg, it's worth 1.5. Here's the money.
Let's not negotiate. Let's leave that to lawyers.
Sure. My name's John Hale, if people don't know, and I'm actually a real estate investor in town. I'm actually the caretaker of the Putnam Hotel. My vision is to build something there, and I want to do it. Except I need some backing, and I need to figure out how we do it as a team. I mean, we've done $3.5 million worth of property in 5 years. I'm hungry for a big project in this town, and I would love to do it. We tried to do the middle school, the select board tried to help. It wasn't gonna work for us, but this is a property that, something needs to be done with it, and I would love to be on board to do it.
Can I ask what your vision is?
My vision, I think we need a hotel there.
I agree.
That's our foot traffic.
I agree.
That is our foot traffic.
If you took a poll today, you probably have 9 out of 10 people that feel there should be a hotel. But, again, let's not get into the weeds. This is a meeting, I think that's what we're talking about the next time. But that clock could be a symbol. We've heard about the iconic light. Well, frankly, that's an opportunity that we should be able to take advantage of. It's public record, public hearing, that's why we have to do all of the cameras and that. But I'm so damn proud of you folks, because you're together, and we've got to take that next step. This is just the first one as a group, because I've heard all of these things, as Kathy has over the years, but I think I can see coalition. There's a coalition here that's coming together. So let's make this and finally tune this economic clock, so that someday we can rally around that clock and look over at that building, and it'll be a dynamic feature of a dynamic downtown. Again, thank you for coming. I have one question though, and I won't hold you to any answers right now. Do you believe that we can raise $10 million in private capital investment in a project? I'm not going to ask the answer, but if you do have that answer and it's yes, leave your check. Thanks.